Hello my friends and welcome to the Electric Viking. Fantastic to see you here on another awesome day on planet Earth. Now guys, if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so. Oh, I'll be stoked if you did so anyway. I really appreciate your support. And if you've already subscribed guys, thank you. I appreciate it. Now, the cheapest electric vehicle in Australia is just under $40,000, $39,990. The crazy thing is, right, it's got 7 seats and it's a van. Sort of looks a little bit like a crossover between an SUV and a van. Doesn't look as vanish as some vans. But anyway, it's a van with 7 seats. And one of the viewers of the channel has got in contact with me and told me that he's bought one and invited me to go on a road trip with him as he drives his car from Sydney to Brisbane. So I'll be doing that in September when the van arrives. I should call it a crossover, shouldn't I? Bit nicer. When the crossover arrives in Sydney in September. I'm really looking forward to that. Now, if you don't already know, the BYD E6 electric crossover is on sale through Nextport subsidiary EV Direct. And unfortunately, Nextport has only been able to bring in 15 of these for the first allotment. But of course, a new shipment will arrive after this shipment. Now, the CEO of Nextport, Luke Todd, has said that if interest is high, they'll bring in a lot more of these vehicles. And in fact, he's predicted they'll bring in more than 30,000 EVs to Australia alone next year, including, of course, the BYD EA1 or the Dolphin, which I've reported on in many other videos. I'll put links in the description below. The EA1 will be, of course, the cheapest EV in Australia by far when it arrives towards the end of this year, maybe first quarter of next year. Either way, won't be long before you see those on our roads, and you're going to see a lot of them because there is enormous interest for these vehicles. I've had a lot of people contact me on the channel. Heaps of people say they're going to order one. I'm looking at potentially ordering one. I'm certainly going to order one of BYD's EVs, and I'm planning on hopefully ordering a Tesla Model Y when they come to Australia as well. Getting back to the BYD E6. Now, several thousand BYD E6s are currently in operation as taxis in China, and there's a lot of good reports about them on the forums. Now, Australia's cheapest EV before the new E6 just took its crown was MG ZS EV, which cost $45,000. But of course, it's a much, much smaller vehicle, also with a much smaller battery. Now, with this E6, you're actually getting a 70 kilowatt hour battery, which is going to give you an NEDC claim range of around 525 kilometers. So a real world range of around about 380 kilometers, which is a lot more than the real world range of the MG ZS EV, which is around about 250 kilometers. So as you can see, this is just incredible value. You're getting BYD's new blade battery. 7 seats, a much bigger vehicle, $5,000 cheaper, a bigger battery, more range. It wins on basically, well, every category. And yet, the MG ZS EV is selling like crazy in Australia. Apparently, an entire boat full of MG vehicles, most of them EVs, has just arrived in Australia because MG has so much demand, they're not keeping up with demand for their electric vehicles here in Australia. Now, you can imagine the kind of demand there's going to be for BYD's new EVs being significantly cheaper than MG's EVs in the country, and I actually think better. Well, obviously, if you compare these two vehicles on stats, the BYD vehicle clearly wins in every category, and it's $5,000 cheaper. So, to my mate who's offered me a drive in his new BYD E6, very good choice on your car purchase, I believe, and I'm really looking forward to testing it out. Now, power output is pretty modest. It's only 70 kilowatt. Maximum torque is 180 newton meters, and the top speed is 130 kilometers an hour. But this is, of course, a vehicle meant for moving lots of people or lots of gear. It's not for going fast off the traffic lights. But remember, a 70 kilowatt EV is probably comparable to something more like 120 kilowatt petrol or diesel vehicle, simply because in an EV, you have power at 0 RPM, you have torque at 0 RPM. Whereas in a petrol or diesel car, you've got to really rev your engine before you get to the max torque or max power. Usually, max power will come in a diesel or petrol vehicle at anywhere between 3,500 to 6,500 RPM, depending on the type of vehicle. And torque, well, a lot of manufacturers say torque will come in at, say, your full torque will come in at 2,000 RPM with some vehicles, 3,000 with others. But personally, in my experience, that isn't actually true. Real world day-to-day driving of these sorts of vehicles, I find that torque, there's often a torque hole in petrol and diesel vehicles, especially turbocharged ones, at low RPM. So until you get to 2,000, it's sort of a nothing range. Nothing happens really. And then all of a sudden when you get to 2,000, you start to take off. You don't have that experience in an electric vehicle. You have instant, immediate reactions. So it feels like the car is actually more powerful. So what about the wheelbase? Well, it has a 2.8 meter wheelbase and a turning radius of 5.65 meters. And it sits on McPherson struts with a multi-linked rear. Now, in terms of charging, the BYD E6 has been modified to accept CCS2 DC fast charging at a top rate of 60 kilowatt and AC charging at a top rate of 6.6 kilowatt using a Type 2 connector. Now, vehicle controls are via a central dash touchscreen, and early images show a roomy seating plan with comfortable leather seats. The BYD E6 is initially available in blue or white. Now, some of you I know are put off by leather seats. Guys, I wouldn't worry too much about this. Getting caught up over those sorts of things is probably not as important as purchasing an EV, which is going to save you money, going to save the environment money, and it's going to give you a better overall experience versus the small detraction of leather seats. Anyway, you have to say, guys, this is an incredible price for an electric people mover. Absolutely shockingly good. It's around about 30,000 US dollars. For those of you in the United States, 30,000 US dollars. Would you buy an EV like this for 30,000 US dollars? I think there'd be potentially, I don't know, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people in the United States willing to buy an EV people mover for 30,000 US dollars. Now, hopefully the distributor in Australia can get more stock soon, and hopefully we can get more people out of their petrol and diesel polluting vehicles and into one of these vans. Lots of families with young children are keen on vehicles that don't pollute, and the E6 is just the ticket. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.